Art teachers with Rutherford County Schools have had the chance in the month of May to showcase their talents at the Community Gallery at the Washington Theater.
Here in the gallery we're doing a faculty show. So these are pieces from teachers throughout the district, throughout Rutherford County. I'm new here, so it's nice to be able to see other teachers' work and other collaborators coming in and doing different things and just seeing the artwork from different perspectives, so it's really cool.
I think it's really neat. You know, in the world of art education, there are rare opportunities to sort of show that you're an artist and an art educator. So, and I love the idea of the art teachers in the district coming together and showing work together. You know, we're all spread out, and so we don't often even get an opportunity to appreciate each other's gifts. Because we don't often get to talk about them or share them with each other. So it's really exciting.
While the teachers like to share their own styles of art with their classes, they also embrace each student's own interpretation.
In my personal art, I tend to really gravitate towards detail and precision, and I really like the minutia that makes things interesting. In art class with my students, that's not necessarily what I'm trying to teach them. I want kids to just appreciate the world and the beauty in the world and to see things more complexly than just that's a picture or, oh yeah, that's pretty. Why is it pretty? What makes it interesting? What's the story and the historical references and the what makes it important?
Our school's really good about giving us lots of control and being sort of open with what we can do. In my class is as an open art room, so they get to develop and propose all kinds of different projects. We start off a lot of stuff with art history, so we try to use art history as our basis of inspiration, and then they sort of propose their own projects, and then through their proposals you kind of start finding their little niches and what they're interested in.
Freeman points out how young artists today are fortunate to have a number of ways to display their artwork to the world.
Students are really able lately to promote their art on social media and find a foothold there. And for some of my students, the ones who are really interested in that particular career path, we've talked a lot about the different kinds of alliances that you can join and the ways that you can get displayed in galleries and using local art alliances to really promote your stuff.
Both teachers are appreciative of the opportunity to showcase their art in local venues like the Community Gallery.
I think it's fantastic. I've already had a student who's seen my work and came to class and said, I was at Patterson Park and I saw your work. So, you know, places like this that allow for these kinds of shows, I think they're invaluable. It's a huge, boost for us as artists to be able to display our work, and then it's also really nice for the community to be able to come and see that there are artists working around that may not have display spaces, readily available. So it's really cool for them to let us come in here and do this. It's super nice.
It is important for me, just as an artist, not as an art educator, to show what I do to the community. It is part of my livelihood, and without things like this, it's hard to get that out there. It's hard to have people say, oh, I've seen your work, maybe I would like to have something for my living room, or that kind of thing.
Freeman has 3 pieces on display, one having a personal feel, and the other 2 show birds not many would find in a painting.
So in November of last year, I decided, for whatever reason, that vultures were really interesting. I had started painting crows a while back because they were my dad's favorite animal. He thought they were really smart. And my wife, who's amazing, does clay sculptures that have little subtle human emotions on them. And we collaborated a little bit on some other things, and I made like a 2-headed goat and some things. The spirit of it is really just to take things that aren't typically beautiful or that people don't really regard as this, stereotypically gorgeous animal, but to have like real function and importance in our ecosystems, and to try to like cutesy them up and make them a little more appealing. This is a black vulture, which is native to Tennessee. And I just really enjoyed its kind of look, and it's kind of got this sort of subtly, I don't know, sad sort of look on it. And so I thought, why not put a little party hat on it and kind of liven him up a little bit. Maybe he could, be hanging out at a party with his little bright and colorful hat. And I like the contrast of the black and the green there. And the Vulture's chalk pastel is really soft and fuzzy, just in general, I find. And the party hat is oil pastel, which are two things that I've been really hitting heavy. The oil pastel especially I've been doing for the last couple of years. So I thought I would kind of mix those two there. But yeah, it's just a way to kind of pretty these things up and make them more appealing, like give them a chance of being accepted in life, So that's kind of the idea for him. For this piece here, this is a bone-eating bearded vulture. They're from Iran and Western Asia. And I had done turkey vultures and black vultures, which are native to Tennessee. And then I kind of started looking around to find other cool-looking birds, just to see what else I could do. And I found this, and this bone-eating bearded vulture. They're the super neatest bird ever. They're white. They are naturally white. They only eat bones. They eat the marrow out of bones, and then they roll in iron oxide and natural rocks that are around in their habitat, and they dye themselves pink and sometimes red, and no one really knows why they do that. And I just think they're really neat. I didn't need to kind of gussy him up, because he's already gussying himself up with his iron oxide dye job on his feathers. And so I just thought it was a really natural fit for my work. Instead of me having to give him a hat or something to make him more beautiful, like he's taken it upon himself. He has the initiative already to do it on his own, but no one really knows why they want to do that. So it's really cool. And I just really loved doing this with all the colors and yellows and blues and pinks and reds and oranges. His hair is like almost rainbow, but from far away it looks really pink and natural. And the coolest part, I think, about these vultures is, even if they're white, they have the coolest eyes. Their eyes are just otherworldly and neat, and I think that's just the neatest thing about them. But I really enjoyed the long hairs and these really short, fuzzy hairs. Those were fun to practice and do when I was drawing this out. Before I started doing birds in November, I was primarily a portrait artist, so I did a lot of portraits of different people in different media, mostly in paint. With 2 kids, I had to switch over to a different media than paint, so I started doing chalk pastel, and I did a bird in chalk pastel, a big vulture in chalk pastel, and then I thought, hey, for my second trick, I'll do 3 tiny faces, a triple portrait, to try to see how well I can use this media. So I did a portrait of my wife, Shannon, and my 2 daughters, Sadie and Arwen, here, and they're on a swing. I took the composition here is kind of like a triangular sort of a thing, and I try to use these different ropes as to really push depth on it. And I kind of added her foot down here to kind of kick out of the frame, this little black frame that I made. And it's kind of the way I see it, as I'm pushing them on the swing. I always get like the foot in my face sort of thing. So I kind of added that there to kind of show that particular, my own perspective of that. But with chalk pastel, they like big surfaces, and this one has really tiny, areas to do their faces. And I found that really challenging, to try to get in there and do these faces and try to get likeness and emotion and try to capture each individual personality with these little things. And I learned a lot a lot of trial and error and a lot of stopping and starting and sort of figuring things out. But I think it turned out nice. I think everybody's really captured in there and it looks like them, so I'm pretty happy with it.
The artwork on display from Bethlehem includes something right out of one's garden.
Well, this piece is aptly named Veggies. This is the first piece of Quarantine 2020. I am always drawn to organics. A lot of what I do are florals, and I love me some vegetables, and landscapes, and really up close still lifes with tons of detail. So in this picture, it is actually the first picture of vegetables I've done. I was working on a large floral that I finished up just as the COVID started and things started shutting down. And it was actually a friend of mine mentioned something about she had a ton of carrots, so she brought them over. So I started setting up some still lives and doing sketches. I almost always start with lots of sketches and lots of placement. Composition's very important to me. And as I got into the details, I started adding other root vegetables, and I just really was enjoying the play in the leaves and the colors and the small shapes juxtaposed against the other shapes. So there was just something really pleasing to my detail-loving soul about all the little pieces that make up each one. In this world, we often look at something and say, oh, it's a carrot. And yet the multitude of details and the multitude of little shapes and patterns and shadows and highlights go unnoticed. It reminds me of just our cells. You look and you see a hand, but if you were to magnify that, the detail and the complexities in the natural world are fascinating to me. So Veggies was my first quarantine piece this year, and I enjoyed it. It took quite a while. It is made of colored pencil, strictly. I will often work in watercolor, and I will often work in colored pencil. And then the third thing I often do is mixing the two. So this particular piece is only done in colored pencil. There's no watercolor washes involved. So this piece is called the Nashville Skyline. You can see why. My husband and I have been in Nashville area about 4 years now. We moved from the coast, from Delaware actually, little town by the seashore, and now we're here nearer to a big city. And when I first came, I did a commission for something that was Nashville. It was a record. And I started getting really interested in some of the architecture around. So I did some paintings, both in watercolor and some sketches in colored pencil of some architecture in town and around Rutherford County and around Nashville. And with this particular piece, I drew the sheet music. And it is precisely correct to the note. It's canon in D minor, and it was a labor of love. But through doing this piece and going through that music, it was really an interesting sort of learning moment for me. It was it just filled with minutia. Very detailed and careful. There were a few times I was sorry I started it. And then as it started to come to life, I started to spend a lot of time thinking about the connection of our area with music and people who write music and just appreciating all the different forms of art that there are. So when doing the sheet music to this, I got kind of inspired by how the music notes were a lot like stippling, which is a pen and ink technique where you make little dots. And pointillism would be that same idea, but in a painting format. And so as I sort of associated the notes with stippling, I decided to do some experimenting, and I did a whole bunch of a series of pictures and paintings where I started to develop the idea of music notes used as stippling, which you'll see in my other piece right over here. This piece I called Flowing Music, and this is less about some of those other things that I told you that I like so much, the details and the still life and the organics. And I moved into some experimentation with, again, using the music notes as stippling. So if you look like in the face of the lady, there are no lines. It's all done with music notes of various sizes. And I used those music notes to sort of create the textures in her face. And then again in the hair. Now the hair does have lines, but I sort of did a play on the idea of sheet music and in turning her hair into those sheet music pieces. So together with the Nashville Skyline and the flowing music and several other paintings, I have sort of a music and Nashville collection theme that I've done some work around and will continue to do some work around. And then with the vegetables, of course, and the botanicals, I have a lot of work still to do in those areas, things that I'm excited about creating, hopefully this summer and beyond.